Now, we haven't talked about the position property before, but it's one of the most important properties for laying out elements on the page. So we'll end up using it quite a bit eventually, but we haven't used it yet up to this point because we've been dealing with single elements for the most part. Now, I've been working with HTML and CSS for many years now, and I still find the values of this property confounding at times. And a lot of this has to do with the fact that whatever the value of position is for a particular element, its effects will be different depending on what the position of its container element is. So what's happening in this case is that we have a number of absolutely positioned elements, but the container element that we want it to show within has the default position of static. And we could actually fix this pretty quick if we clicked on this div here and scrolled to the selector and we gave this a position of relative. Now you saw when we did that, the navigation disappeared up here, and if we scroll down to our slideshow, we'd see it properly positioned over our slides, and we can use it to navigate. So what's the deal here? So by default, most elements on the page are going to have a position of static. So if we go here to position and we type static, that would be the default. And you see our navigation disappearing. So practically what this means is that we can't use the left or the top property in order to position this element relative to where it's positioned by default. Now we haven't used the left or top property before, but that's what it means, that we're moving where it's positioned based on where it should have been positioned by default. If we change the position here to relative though, you see that we now get bumped over 49 pixels. That's because we're now left of where it should be. And by giving it a position of relative, we're saying that we're allowing it to be positioned relative to where it would normally be positioned. Now, our A tag down here has a position of absolute. And absolute means that it's going to be positioned relative to its first containing element that has the position of relative. So what happens when our slideshow has a position of static, like it would by default, this A tag is going up the hierarchy of elements until it finds one that has a position of relative. In this case, it's going to wait till it gets to the very base document, and it will position itself absolutely to that. So Flex Slider is calculating what the size of the slideshow is going to be, and it's positioning these arrows in the middle of that height. So if we had had the slideshow at the very top of the page, we would see these in the correct location. It's just that it's being positioned relative to the wrong element. So if we set our slideshow to relative, this absolutely positioned element will climb up the hierarchy until it gets to this element, and then it will say, okay, so we're going to be positioned based on what this element is positioned at. By default, that's going to be the same exact position as this element. If we look at this A tag here, you can see that Flex Slider is positioning this 10 pixels from the left of where it would normally be. And if we scrolled down, we'd see a top of 50%. So 0% would be the exact same position as this slideshow. 50% will be 50% of the way down this element. So that's why if we scroll down, it looks nicely positioned in the middle here. Now, one final position that you'll find useful in specific situations is the fixed position. So if we go back to our slideshow and we change this position to fixed, we'll see this disappear. But what fixed means is relative to the viewport. Now, in order to get it to show up properly, we also have to specify a top or a bottom. So if we do top 10 pixels, you'll see it show up here. So this is 49 pixels from the left, 10 pixels from the top. And as we scroll the document, you can see that it doesn't move. So fixed means that we take it out of the document altogether and tie its position in with the viewport instead. That is the window in the browser. You can see that our absolutely positioned element here still works inside of a fixed element. So we have to kind of update our thinking a little bit, knowing that, which is that if we have an absolute element, it will go up the hierarchy until it finds an element that either has a relative position or a fixed position. Okay, I'm going to refresh this to reset our CSS. And let's go to our slideshow CSS and give our slideshow a relative position. We'll save it and refresh, and there's our navigation. Cool.